Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we're going to be taking a somewhat detailed look at the Scorpion. This is a 9mm semi-auto pistol caliber carbine that is very popular. They're really neat. This particular one is an SBR that's in relatively stock configuration. We've got a factory folding stock mechanism on it. This one's outfitted with a tri-lug and a suppressor. And we're going to go through and we're going to clean on this gun a bit. This particular one has had, at this point, about 3,000 rounds put through it. It's really, really, really dirty. So what we want to do is sort of inspect. We're going to clean it. We're probably going to ultrasonic everything just to speed up the cleaning process. And we're going to look for wear. And we're going to go over a couple of things that, people probably need to know about the Scorpions. They're great guns. Let's go ahead and get into it. If you guys want to learn more about gunsmithing and stuff, definitely look into Sonoran Desert Institute. They are a great bunch of guys over there. Lots of really great programs that they offer. If you're looking for higher education in the way of gunsmithing, they're definitely people to look into. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to break down the Scorpion, have a look, see how nasty she is. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and proceed to get the Scorpion apart. This is an earlier model that has the 18mm threads. So this is a tri-lug adapter, which adapts the 18mm thread to a 1/2x28, which then, obviously we have a tri-lug on there. So you can have, if you have an early one, then you have to adapt that 18mm either to a 1/2x28 or to a tri-lug. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to go ahead and pull this can off. It rotates like this, and it's pretty crusty. We're going to have to pull it off here. Man, it's freaking on there. Guys, this thing is crusty duck. We are going to have to maybe take a block of wood and just tap this thing off here. I've just got a very small hammer here. I'm going to grab this block of wood. Thanks, Chad. He's going to hold it. And guys, remember, this thing has had a ton of rounds through it, and we have not made any effort to clean this thing for quite a bit. Well, it's trying to move, isn't it, Chad? Man, that's on there. It is moving, though. It is moving. Let me grab my copper rod here. Hang on. We're going to break out the Thor's hammer here. I've just got a big bar of copper that we use as a beater. We're going to step up to just a little bit heavier of a hammer. We're going to give this thing some gentle persuasion. It's on there, guys. It's moving. She's moving. Okay. There's our suppressor. Obviously, you can see that this tri-lug mount can get really nasty and grody, and our suppressor definitely needs to be cleaned. That's something we're going to worry about in a different video. We'll go over some suppressor maintenance and things like that. We're not going to discuss that in this particular video. We can see here that we have the 18mm adapter that's in place that adapts it to a tri-lug, and if I'm not mistaken, this one is not threaded on the end. It could be. It might just be really dirty. So we'll cross that bridge here in a moment. All right, now that we've got the suppressor off of the rifle, pistol, whatever you want to call it, we're going to go ahead and remove the stock, make sure that the bolt is forward. It locks up and to the right, right here, just similar to an MP5. Just make sure it's shut. Obviously, the chamber's empty. We're good. Put on safe for the time being. This particular one has a stock on it, but you can also run, if it's just got the end cap, the disassembly procedure is going to be very similar. Okay, there's just a little plunger in here. I know it's probably hard to tell, but it's a little knurled plunger that you just want to push in right here. Okay, see it moving back and forth? Okay, we're going to push in that knurled plunger, and we're going to lift gently, and the stock should just basically come right free. Just like that. Okay, we're going to remove the grip as well. There's just a screw right here on the left side of the firearm. Remove the grip screw. Okay. We are going to take a rubber mallet or a dead blow mallet and just hold the gun right here. Just give it some gentle pressure like this. Okay. The grip actually retains the trigger mechanism in here. Okay. All right. This pin right here is actually captured. Okay. So what you want to do is just take a punch. It shouldn't take a whole lot of force to move it. You can see it right here. This pin, you're going to push it, and it should relatively remain captured. Don't force it. Just leave it captured because it actually skewers this mechanism here for the bolt stop. We're going to go ahead and bring the bolt to the rear. I'm pretty sure that's where it needs to be for this part of the procedure. Now, it should clear. It should be able to just pull out like that. We can see that this trigger mech is very, very, very dirty, and we're going to take some close-up shots before we do anything. We're not going to disassemble it really too much further at all. There's really no need. This thing is going to be getting a complete ultrasonic cleaning. Most of the work that's been done with this particular gun has been just about all suppressed, and you can certainly tell there's a lot of suppressor juju and carbon buildup in here. We also see that the hammer itself has definitely got some marring on the face of the hammer. I mean, it's been rode hard. This one's had about 3,000 rounds put through it. Looking at this lower, we can see that not only is the bolt stop really robust, we can see this large bolt stop. If I wanted to force this pin out all the way, there's a spring under this bolt stop that we could take out if we want. There's no need because we're going to be running in the ultrasonic. This right here is our ejector. It's very, very tough, and it's a very large and robust piece of hardware. It looks to be in really nice shape with very little abnormal wear at all. Looks like it's in nice shape. There's a little bit of mushrooming on the top of the hammer. Not terribly too bad at all. Okay, now our bolt mechanism, it kind of lifts out. So we're going to, basically you saw I had this locked to the rear. We're going to let it go forward. And you should, if memory serves on this, you should be able to just cheat it back a little bit, about this far. And I think you just grab it out of there. Okay, so I'm manually pulling the bolt back with my thumb right here. Okay, so the charging handle it'll just ride, and I should be able to just lift this thing up just like that. See how I did that? You literally just push it back far enough with your finger and keep pressure on it because it's under pressure, and just lift it up just like this. Gently decompress. It is under a little bit of pressure still, and then there is your bolt mechanism. All right, our upper looks to be in some pretty nice shape. It's got a ton of carbon buildup. The rail's holding up really nicely on there. I don't really see any reason to think of anything giving us any issues. We are going to go ahead and pull the sights off of it because we don't want to put those in the ultrasonic. So I'm going to have to grab a different Allen key. Yeah, it ended up being a 3mm. This is a Bondus set. These particular units I got through Brownells. Okay. And those do appear to be some form of thread locking compound is on these particular screws because it took a considerable amount of force to break. I've never had these sights off. I've just been running the factory irons for the most part. I have ran this gun with an optic, and it works just fine. All right, we're going to loosen this up. That should, those are going to have to come out all the way on this particular sight. Pull these off. That should slide off. Yep. Just like that. Okay. The rear sight aperture on the CZ Scorpion has 4 distinctive settings in terms of the size of the actual aperture. Okay. And it is adjustable for windage. Your front sight is adjustable for elevation. Okay. So, yeah, we had this little guy. It's okay. We'll set all that off to the side. We're not going to sonic the sights. This gun is held up pretty well, okay? Your charging handle can actually be moved to the right side of the weapon if you want. This pin right here just pushes out. I don't think it's really retained other than just a little bit of friction. I'm just going to give it a little bit of gentle hand pressure. and just see if that pin will move without any undue force. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. Let's give it just a little bit of persuasion here. Yeah, okay. So if we remove this pin, it's got a distinctive slot in it. All right, it's kind of an odd, looking pin. Just be careful with it. To get the charging handle out, it's going to go all the way forward until it meets a little bit of resistance. All right, it's not going to push forward much more. Just grab a scribe, go in there and push down this little clip that's in here. Probably going to need something a little bit bigger than what I've got here. Maybe just a small punch, like probably maybe this guy here will work. We're just going to push that clip in. It's just a little spring clip that kind of retains it. We're going to push that in. It can be a little bit of a bear. There it goes. Okay, it's a charging handle. All right, the upper is about as stripped as I want it to be. You can pull it apart a little bit more if you want, but for the purposes of cleaning and inspecting, this is good enough. Now, there's one other area that probably needs to have a little bit of attention paid to it, and this is not something I can really show you easily, but it is the feed ramp on these guns. Some people have complained of problems with some of the Scorpions and having feeding issues, failures to feed, and some people have seen some deformation of their feeding ramp. I don't know if that's an isolated incident. Knowing the quality of CZ, I would say it's probably an isolated incident. My feed ramp looks fine. I expect it to clean up just fine, but that's something you want to pay attention to. When you get your Scorpion apart, pay close attention to the feed ramp and make sure there's no damage or deformed metal or anything like that. All right, so for the bolt, we're going to grab an armorer's block. This pin right here drives into the top. We're going to drive it out from the bottom, and that's going to hold in, looks like probably our extractor. I'll be honest, I've never had one of these apart. We're going to look at it though. It needs to be cleaned really well because it's been rode really hard. We also want to see if there's any damage that's resulted. I'm going to have to grab a punch here. I'm just going to drive this out. Set this just like this. It should just drive right out. All right, that's holding our extractor claw, which on this particular gun, man, is a robust piece of equipment. I mean, that is one robust extractor. That's one thing that I've always thought is, a really cool feature about the Scorpion is how robust and well made the extractor is. So we can see that this particular bolt mechanism has got quite a bit of crud behind the extractor, so it's probably a good idea to get that extractor out of there. Next, we're going to contend with our firing pin channel and retention plunger. There's a pin that comes out from the bottom of the extractor groove, which is a really smart way to do it because the thing is, you don't have to worry about that pin walking out. There's a redundancy that's in place by having the extractor in, which is a really clever way to do it. We're going to take the bolt and lay it extractor side down. There's a hole right here. We're going to place our punch down in there. And that pin should just drive right out, and that is what is retaining our firing pin. Shouldn't be under a ridiculous amount of pressure. Okay. It's just a little plunger, like a little stud. Okay. Now, our firing pin will come right out. It's under some spring pressure, and of course it's really dirty. I'm just going to pull that out, just like that is our firing pin. Need to notate the orientation that it was in. Okay. Get that out of here. This little guy is going to come out. Be careful, don't lose this stuff. Oh, and there's a tiny little spring there. Want to watch out for that. Yep. And then there's another spring. That's your firing pin return spring. Okay, it sits over it like this. So there's that whole assembly. Now, to get the recoil assembly apart and the guide rod and spring and all that, if you wanted to do it, the best way to do it would be to compress it like this. We're not going to take it apart because it's a real bear. You would compress it until this stud sticks out through the top, just like this, and you would rotate it. But what you would first do is you would actually take something and block it off with. And something that would probably be a good thing to block it off with would be this other half of the front side assembly. If you take it just like this and lay it here, it will actually expose this roll pin. Now it is a really tiny little roll pin. You can barely see it in the camera there. Don't drive that out unless you have to. These roll pins are fragile, and unless you got extra roll pins laying around, I would not recommend removing it unless there's some visible issue. All right, so if I compress this, this is going to fall out. Okay, and if I rotate it, it's in its normal position. For cleaning, like in this case in the ultrasonic, I'm going to push it, compress it just a bit, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees so that it is exposed a little bit there. And that'll let the ultrasonic cleaner get down and all of that. Now let's look at some wear and tear on the bolt. So this is over 3,000 rounds in. We've got a little bit of brightening of some of the high spots. We've got a little bit of peening right here on the back side of the bolt carrier. All right, you can see it right here. So what we see where that interfaces with the hammer is that seems to be where a lot of our wear and tear is occurring on this particular Scorpion. Is certainly you're getting some drag on the inside of the bolt from the ejector. You're getting a bit of peening on the top side of the hammer, and you're getting a bit of peening on the back side of the bolt carrier. Not unlike an AK or something like that. So I would say that's probably normal wear. This appears to be hardened really well. I don't really see any issues in terms of longevity there. We are going to go ahead and sonic this whole arrangement and get it cleaned up, and we're going to lubricate and inspect for any further wear. In a nutshell, that's how you field strip this thing for everyday cleaning. Now when you get into things such as like in the mechanism I'm holding here, if we rotate this safety to the fire position, which would be to the rear, yes, you'll see that there's actually a couple of set screws, and that is what you would take out to remove the safety mechanism if you want. Like if you're going to put in aftermarket safety or something like that, you could certainly do that via these two screws. Also, the ejector can be simply removed from just a simple screw here. Also, we mentioned our bolt stop. You can simply just gently force this pin out, and this whole arrangement will come out, no big deal. Relatively simple. Same thing with our magazine release. Now we're not going to bother taking it out right this moment, but the magazine release is just very similar to an AK, okay? In terms of it's just got a little leg that flips out of the way, and it's just a roll pin holding it in. So again, if it's a roll pin, I wouldn't take it out unless you absolutely have to. In this case, our magazine release has got plenty of tension. You know, our hammer has got plenty of tension. All the springs seem to work. We're simply just in a situation where it's really dirty and we need to clean it. We're going to go ahead and ultrasonic it, and then we'll go on to lubricate and check for any other appreciable wear that we can find. All right, we've gotten all of our parts out of the ultrasonic with the CZ Scorpion here. Everything looks really nice. The ejector has a little bit of brightening right there, you can see. Not too terrible. That's probably where it's riding on the inside of the bolt. If we look at the inside of the bolt where the ejector swipes against it, there's definitely a bit of a mark there, but it's certainly not bad. Okay, right in there. Wear and tear is not too bad. The bottom of the bolt mechanism, now that we've got it nice and clean, not too bad. Like we said, there is a little bit of a impression right there. You can probably see where my pinky is, and that's just where the hammer is contacting the rear of the bolt. And there is just a tiny amount of marring on the hammer. I don't see it being an issue. So it looks like the hardening of the hammer itself is pretty nice. I would say normal wear and tear. That would be indicative of just about any type of semi-auto. Now looking at the upper, I'm probably going to have to get after this feed ramp a little bit better. The ultrasonic got it pretty clean. Not sure how well you can see that, but the feed ramp itself looks to be in good shape. Although maybe just a little bit dirty, but otherwise the ultrasonic cleaned up just fine on this. We're going to go ahead and hit a couple of areas, maybe with a nylon bristle brush and a little bit of LPS2. A lot of folks ask us, you know, some of the cleaning products we use. We're definitely a fan of, for lubrication, we tend to use the Geisley, the ALG Go Juice, as well as the LPS2. And, you know, depending on the particular instance that we're looking to take on, it's kind of hard to beat LPS2. I picked some of it up recently, and I got it in relatively bulk quantities, and it's great, okay? We're just going to go ahead and just oil this stuff down a bit. Excuse me. The bolt cleaned up really, really nice. I mean, that just turned out just wonderful. You know, and the recoil spring is in really nice condition. Cleaned up really nice. This gun's had quite a few rounds through it, and I'm very impressed with how well it cleaned up and how good it looks. We are going to go ahead and probably put our extractor back in there. And remember, we can also take some of this LPS, get it really down in every little crack and crevice, and then we can grab our air nozzle. I'm just going to do it over here off camera, and we'll just distribute all the oil down inside of it with the air nozzle. Excuse me. I'm getting over a little bit of the funk, so sorry if I got my voice is a little scratchy here. Cleaned up very nice. Roll pins are in place. Looks good. I guess we can go ahead and assemble this bolt since that's sort of what we're working on. Here's our extractor claw. Like I said, big beefy extractor. Looks really, really nice there. We've got our firing pin, which cleaned up beautifully. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take the firing pin return spring and take the firing pin and just push it on up into the channel first. And the firing pin spring, just like it did, should just stay in the channel. This little plunger here has got this tiny little spring. Don't lose it. It's itty bitty. We're going to push that down into the slot. And only go in one way. All right, and it should have obviously some spring pressure. The slots in the firing pin, we want to make them in basically the down position, down towards the top of the bolt. And then we're going to go ahead and just push this in just like this. You may have to sort of rotate it and wiggle it a little bit to get it into the position. All right, see how that locked in? That's great, okay? Now if you push this down, see it's going to allow the firing pin to come out. Just push it in until this pops up. Now our firing pin is in place. Now you'll look through this hole that's in the bottom of the extractor cut. If you push it in to about this orientation, if you push the firing pin in all the way, it'll basically create a round point that's on the front of the firing pin. That angular cut that's in there is for this little bitty stud, has to go on the bottom of the extractor channel, okay? So all we're really going to do is just take a little pair of pliers here. And you can see there's a wear point on this. We're going to try to get the wear point matched up to exactly the way that it was in the gun originally, which would be in about this orientation. But I don't think it matters which way it goes in. Just set it in the bottom of the little slot there. Grab a punch, push the firing pin forward, and then, you know, all the way, and push it down into place, just like that. All right, that retains your firing pin. That's what this hole, remember, on the left side of the bolt mechanism, is a witness hole, so you can get a punch through there to push that little stud out of the bottom of the extractor cut. Make sure that this little plunger's got plenty of spring tension. All right, that works. Now we'll replace the extractor. The extractor is in great shape. It's a very large and robust extractor. Very minimal wear. I mean, a bit of wear, but mainly just a little bit of bluing loss on the high points. Take this spring right here. It sets in this slot, okay? That's how it's designed to set in there, just like that. And it pushes against the little stud that you put in there to retain the firing pin, okay? So we're going to lay that in there just like this, and then we're going to compress the extractor into place while making sure that that spring, and of course I'm all thumbs here today. And one trick that we could do is we could take a little bit of this grease here. Take just a bit of this grease, and hopefully that'll kind of make that stick in place, okay? Make it a little bit easier to reassemble. So we got our grease with the spring stuck into place, and then we're just gonna put that down in there just like this. All right, now what we're gonna do is, now that everything is lined up, move my grease out of the way here, we're gonna compress it until we see the hole line up. And then remember, this slot this pin has basically a head on the top of it, and that head interfaces with a cut that's made in the top of the bolt mechanism. So we're looking at the bolt from the top right now. All right, we're going to look down in there and see that everything's lining up real nice, and we're just going to push this pin in, and it should kind of drop in relatively by hand once we line everything up. You know, you may have to just put a little bit of pressure, play with it here and there, maybe pull it out, have a look. All right, that looks good. It should. May have to give it just a little bit of persuasion. Get in there, you. And I'm sure the armorers at CZ have, you know, some type of a fixture for this, but we're just going to use our bare mitts here. All right, that went right in, and we can see that that is retaining our extractor, which is beautiful. The face of the bolt looks really nice, and our bolt is reassembled and is ready to drop back into the gun. So that's the bolt mechanism. That's really the most difficult part in terms of the reassembly. We'll go ahead and put our, well, we're gonna take some attention to the barrel, and we're gonna look at this feed ramp. So let's do that. We're gonna pay a little bit of attention to this area here. It cleaned up really nice. We can see there's still just a little bit of flakes of carbon and stuff, but very robust construction, very well made firearm. There's a little bit of a groove right here. I want to make sure that doesn't have anything to get in the way. And we're going to get in here with for starters, maybe just a nylon bristle brush, and try to break up just a little bit of this that's in the bolt face and a little bit that's in the upper. Not overly concerned about it, but I'm going to try to get some of this out of here. Ultrasonic is not going to get every little thing out. You know, there might still be a little bit of hand cleaning you need to do, just to try to get a little bit of that broken up in there. And of course, we'll oil this thing and distribute the oil with the air compressor here in just a moment. We're going to take the 4-dom tool with a Cratex wheel. This is the very fine, what they call the very fine Cratex, and this is a very nice mirror polish that we're going to put on the feed ramp here. And I'm doing this at a really weird angle, so bear with me here. I'm trying to, you know, give you guys an idea. All right, I've gone ahead and just sort of oiled the upper and distributed some oil, wiped it down. We are going to go ahead and replace our charging handle, which simply just goes back into this groove and kind of snaps into place once that spring overcomes, whichever direction you want to put it in. And then this pin just goes right back in. This little flange that's off the side of the pin goes to the rear, okay? In this orientation. You'll see where it lines up, and you'll have to sort of force it just a bit, push it in, and that's it. Our charging handle's back in place. No big deal there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and set the upper aside for just a moment. So the bolt stock is fine, of course, and the upper is fine. Everything looks good there, and of course we'll put our sights back on. That's not a big deal. We looked at the trigger group already. It looks pretty solid. Really just needs to be kind of cleaned up a little bit more in oil. We've got still just a tiny bit of deposits down inside the mag well, and that's just as easy as just taking some LPS2, and off camera here I'm just going to Spray some down in there real good. Give it a nice generous helping, and then we're just going to get after it with the brush in a couple of areas. Get in there and clean that mag well really well. You know, the CZ Scorpion is a great gun. I really like these guns. This one's held up really well. The only minors, and it's an extremely minor complaint that I have about this exact gun, is that I got one of the early versions with the 18mm threads. Almost wish I would have held off and maybe gotten one of the 1/2x28 versions. When we did our initial video on the Scorpion, we sort of complained respectfully, just a tiny amount, about the fact that, you know, that it was in the weird threads and not the you know, the more common 1/2x28. And it looks like CZ definitely listened to their customers on that. This is an early 18mm, but it's a great gun. I just don't like the fact that the adapter adds a bit of extra length. But something that I'm going to end up doing on this particular one is I'm probably going to get a K conversion kit and turn this one into even a shorter barrel. So that's something probably do in a future video. All right, I'm just going to distribute this oil with the air nozzle here. And then we'll go ahead and put it back together. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so one more thing on the trigger mech that I want to show you is anywhere you see wear at all, where the disconnector and the trigger hooks catch on to the hammer, you can see some high points that are worn. You probably want to put some type of grease on there. And what I'd recommend doing is anytime, I know some of you guys probably buy like the Geisley triggers, and they come with these little vials of grease. Hold on to those vials of grease, because they usually give you way more than you need. And you can normally use quite a bit of this grease for other stuff. All right, we're going to take some of this grease from our Geisley trigger packs that was left over and just put a bit on the back of this hammer, a little bit right there. We're just going to distribute a bit of this grease here. And you know, it ain't going to hurt nothing. It's a relatively closed system in terms of, you know, it's, you know, dirt and everything getting into the system. It's really not too bad. Put just a little bit of grease on the face of our hammer there, a little bit along our ejector, which, you know, it's just going to get kind of swiped and wiped on into the bolt anyway, but that's just something to consider. You know, a little bit of grease on this pin right here can't hurt. Anywhere that's got some wear, go ahead and grease it up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and reassemble it. We'll start with the bolt mechanism. All right, lay the receiver down on its back like this. Bolt mechanism, spring part in the back. Compress it carefully, don't let it pinch your fingers. You can reach in from the ejection port and kind of hold it, or if you're worried about it, you can also pull the charging handle to the rear. Oh, I didn't push it down far enough. It's okay. Should. There we go. Just like that. Make sure that charging handle is not locked to the rear when you do that. Make sure it's all the way forward. And that bolt, and again, I'll quickly just pull it back out so you can see that. Cheat the charging handle back. Ejection port side, grab it right here. So your finger in there, it just goes in and out just like that. Okay, so charging handle forward, push it down carefully. I like to take my thumb and push right here, and then just, there you go. So there's your bolt mechanism. Of course, now what we want to do, go ahead and lock it to the rear to put our trigger pack back in. The trigger pack has a locking shoulder right here on the rear. Go ahead and just start it in kind of from that position just a bit, like that, and just pushes down into place. Rotate up, out, rotate in and down, just like that. Pin, close her up, that's good to go. We're going to go ahead and replace the stock. It's going to be our next thing. because remember, the grip retains the stock, okay? And if you have an end plate, obviously you're going to go ahead and install the end plate. There's really no good way to explain it. You just got to do it. All right, you take this plunger, push it in. The stock is going to go down just like this. Okay. When you get to the plunger, push in the plunger with your thumb or whatever you want to do. In my case, just be careful not to get your glove caught in there like I just did. Tell you what, why don't we use a tool? Push that in, just like that, and compress it. That locks in place. Our grip, again, is going to slide from the rear forward. Shouldn't really require a lot of force. You saw that I put that on with just hand pressure. All right, and then we've got to locate our grip screw, which is somewhere on the bench. We'll find our grip screw and then we'll get that put back on there. Pretty self-explanatory there. All right, grip screw, pretty self-explanatory, but lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Sometimes I have to remind myself. Okay, we're going to do a functions test before we put the sights back on. Ooh, butter smooth. Butter smooth. Safety. Safety works. Sim-auto. Think she's good, guys. There's your CZ Scorpion. Cleaned up and ready to use. Obviously, we're going to wipe her down with some paper towels a little bit, get some of the excess oil off. If you're going to store it, you could leave a little oil on it if you want. All that's left to do is to really put the suppressor and the sights back on, but that's pretty much cleaning your CZ Scorpion in a nutshell. Maybe this gave you guys a couple of things that you could pay attention to, maybe you didn't think about with the Scorpion, or if you've had some difficulty getting yours apart for field stripping to clean it, hopefully this video helped some of you. Thank you guys very much for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if you'd like to see more detailed teardowns on these guns and cleaning videos. We'll be happy to make them. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of our Patreon supporters, as well as folks who purchase man cans to help support our channel, or if you donate on Patreon. You guys are awesome, all of you, whether you're purchasing merch, you're a Patreon, all of those funds go right back into helping us produce this content. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.